Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, works for CBS Westwood One. You can download the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Also follow him on Twitter at Ross Tucker NFL. And Ross joins us on the program. What's your takeaway from last night's Rams win over Seattle?
Oh, geez. I got a bunch, Dan, both on and off the field, I guess. I'm kind of with you on the Russell Wilson thing. I mean, the first two times they had the ball, Dan, they punted on 4th and 2.5 from the Rams 43. And then they had the ball on the 31-yard line, and it was 3rd and 2. They run it looked to me like a zone read, but Russell Wilson just handed it to DJ Dallas, so I guess he couldn't pull it. He gets tackled for no gain. Then 4th down, they run Alex Collins right at Aaron Donald, gets stoned. I literally tweeted, Dan, are the Seahawks aware that Russell Wilson is their quarterback? Like, someone should probably tell them. And it's funny because I got a bunch of replies from people saying that's why he doesn't want to be there. That's why he's not going to be there. If you just watch those first two series, and I know Russell watches the show or listens, so he's probably watching right now. Russell, you got to go somewhere else, dude. You can't be somewhere where the first two drives of the game, they punt from the 43 and then run it on 3rd and 4th down when you're their quarterback, dude.
What do you take away if you're the Rams?
You know, the one thing I guess I take away, obviously I think Stafford is certainly helping them from what they had last year in golf. Their defense isn't playing as well. You know, they lost Brandon Staley, Dan. I guess it's kind of, what are you going to do? But they lose Brandon Staley to the Chargers. That was a legit brain drain right there. I mean, they had the best defense in football, certainly one of the 2 or 3 best last year. They're not nearly as good this year. Now, they did lose some guys. You know, the Browns picked off a couple of their defensive backs, like Johnson and Hill. So they did lose some guys, but they're also using Jalen Ramsey a lot differently. They're putting him in the nickel a lot, in the slot to cover, you know, the slot receivers. And whatever they're doing, it has not been as effective. And frankly, they were fortunate the way last night went. Even at the end of the first half, you know, Russell throws a touchdown pass. There's a ticky-tack holding penalty, which, by the way, Dan, is my other takeaway from last night's game. 2 things. Number one, clock mismanagement is an absolute epidemic in the NFL. I am shocked how often these guys screw up the clock, number one. Number 2, even just that last drive, a very questionable roughing the passer penalty on Aaron Donald, followed by a questionable holding penalty on Dwayne Brown that I don't think it was a hold. It was ticky-tack on a touchdown pass. Like, I know, Dan, that if you were the commissioner or if Roger Goodell called you, you would say to him, Roger, why don't we, if we're not sure, not throw the flag? Like, why are we throwing flags on questionable calls? Nobody wants that. Nobody asked for that, Dan. It drives me bananas.
They're trying to protect themselves. They don't want to be second guessed. That way, hey, when in doubt, throw the flag.
It should be the opposite. Man. It should be when in doubt, don't throw the flag. All of us can live with if they let him play a little bit more. Okay, well, Aaron Donald, he got up to his neck area, but that was not much. Or Dwayne Brown, okay, I can't, but let him play. I mean, there's too many flags. It's very, very annoying. And for some reason, Dan, you know how many ineligible man downfield calls they've had this year? And I'm on all those meetings before the season where they tell you, they never said that was a point of emphasis. They never said that. The Eagles have been called for it 4 times already. 2 of them touchdowns.
You're shot out of a cannon this morning.
Dude, I get up at 4:30. I have way too much iced tea because I don't like the flavor of coffee. So I have like Pure Leaf iced tea for like 3/4 of it. And I put in just a little bit of Diet Snapple for the flavor. Yeah. Just a little bit of because the whole Diet Snapple, that's like too strong for me. So that's my morning mix, especially when I know I'm going on with you.
Would you rather have Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey?
Aaron Donald. Okay. Yeah, I think a defensive tackle, a dominant defensive tackle, is the most important position on a defense. Ramsey's very good, but you can so often just avoid him if you choose to. And even a defensive end, it's easier to chip those guys. Quarterbacks are so good at stepping up in the pocket when they run around the edge. You have a very impactful defensive tackle, you got problems. I mean, he had like 4 quarterback hits last night, 5 pressures, 8. I mean, he is maybe one of the best defensive players. My rookie year was 2001. The best guy I ever played against, best defensive player, was Ray Lewis. I hope people realize, like, Aaron Donald's that kind of player. Like, when they do 10 years from now, Belichick does that show and they do the top 100 players ever, Aaron Donald is like a top 20 all-time football player.
Talking to Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, also does work for CBS and Westwood One as a color analyst. We were thinking about this. How many teams have had the 2 best defensive players at their position in the league? The Rams have that with Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking about the Ravens, Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. Yeah.
I don't know why this came to my head, but, and this is kind of before my time, Dan, but Mean Joe Green and Mel Blount.
Well, you also had Jack Lambert and Jack Ham.
Jack Ham was good.
Yeah. But I don't know if they were considered the best linebackers at their position. But Mel Blount at the back end, and you had Mean Joe Green certainly were. I'm trying to think who else comes to mind. Did the Cowboys have anybody? You had Randy White or Bob Lilly, but I don't know if you had anybody in the back end that was the best.
Was there anybody? I'm trying to think. Was there anybody in the front 7 when they had Dion in Dallas?
Well, Dion was in a variety of places. So I'm trying to think that with Dallas, did they have a Charles Haley? Was Charles? But I don't think
I don't know if he was the best, but he was very good. I'll give you another one, and Paulie would probably suggest this. Richard Dent. I don't know if he was the best DN because of Reggie White, but he was close. And I think Mike Singletary was the best middle backer. So when the mid 80s Bears had a shot there.
How about Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, John Lynch?
And Rondé Barber was up there too.
Yeah. And Simeon Rice.
4 Hall of Fame guys.
Yeah. And you had Simeon Rice as well,
who was a very good player. To have it at all 3 levels of the defense like that, too, no wonder they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. James Harrison, Troy Polamalu.
I would say, Harrison was Defensive Player of the Year one time.
Yeah.
So, yes. And then Polamalu was probably the best safety that year, although I was always more of an Ed Reed guy. Those guys were just, that's another one of my takeaways from last night, Dan. The Seahawks are paying Jamal Adams a lot of money to look that bad in coverage.
Yeah.
I mean,
but was he ever a coverage guy though, Ross? Wasn't he a guy he was a guy who came up to stop the run?
No, he's like a linebacker.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they're using him as a deep middle of the field, half field safety, but he did not look good in that role. I don't know. They need to blitz him. He needs to be in the box. But he's not Polamalu. He's not Ed Reed, but they're paying him like that. He's not that kind of player.
Are you a Baker Mayfield fan?
I am, but I thought last Sunday was the worst he's ever played, probably by a decent amount. And I think the Browns are going to have a real decision on their hands because.
Would you pay him, though, $45 million a year?
No, I would not. And it's weird because I think the guys like him. I think he's a leader. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a top 20 quarterback, but he's at the bottom end of the top 20. He's not even probably top 15. And I think the realistic portion of this, the reality is that I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that can do what he did. They have the best O-line in the NFL. They have the best run game. Stefanski's a terrific coach. I think there are quarterbacks 20 through 27 in the NFL that could put up very good numbers and win with Baker Mayfield, and you could pay them a lot less.
I just don't know why there's not middle ground? Why is it the next quarterback who comes up is going to make at least $40 million? Because if I'm the Browns, I don't want to spend that kind of money. Can I do 3 years for $30 million or 3 years for $28 million, something like that? Why is it you're either cut or you get the top end money?
You know what's funny about that, Dan? Nobody else would give him that money, right? Like, who is the team that's saying, you know what we need to do if he becomes a free agent? We got to get Baker Mayfield for $40 million a year. I just don't think there's any other. What happens is you're winning and you have a guy you can win with, and teams get so afraid of not having a winning quarterback, a top 20 quarterback, that I think they panic and they pay them, because other teams aren't going to pay Baker $40 million. They're going to say, we'll draft the next guy, or we'll take a retread project like a Sam Darnold, or, a guy that flames out with his first team. No one's going to pay Baker Mayfield top dollar. So if I'm the Browns, I'm not either.
Have a great weekend. Always great to talk to you. Settle down a little bit, all right?
I will. I'll calm down now.
Wait.
Sorry.
Hold on. McLovin needs you. What?
Ross, we queued you up to talk about Buddy Ryan's Eagles defense and Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons. You could any two defensive players there. You grew up like me on Eagles.
Yeah, but Reggie was the best at his position. The other guys weren't.
I think you could have made an argument for Jerome Brown a couple of those years. Clyde Simmons, McLovin, how are you going to say Clyde Simmons when he plays the same position as Reggie White?
All right, fine.
There's no logic there.
Hey, this show needs more Eagles love. I've been saying that, Ross. You got to help me here. I'm on an island.
Are you all in on Penn State versus Iowa this weekend?
Oh, dude, it's going to be an awesome game. You know what's weird, Dan? For number 3 against number 4, I feel like it's not getting that much hype.
It's not.
Why is that the case? Like, I feel like
because
people are talking more about Oklahoma, Texas, or the SEC games. It's number 3 against number 4.
Iowa doesn't get coverage.
Never happens.
Iowa doesn't get coverage because we buy into Iowa, it seems like every year at some point, and then they find the banana peel.
This is the game that they would typically lose. I don't know, man. I watched them against Maryland. They are very good. But look at, here what's crazy. I know I love your college football stuff, Dan. There are 5 teams at least in the Big Ten East that are better than the second best team in the Big Ten West. Like, it's just, they got to do something about it. It's just not equitable. I mean, if Iowa beats Penn State, they're going undefeated.
Did Penn State recruit you?
You know what? I got 2 handwritten letters from Jerry Sandusky.
Ooh.
Believe it or not.
Ooh.
The first one was to come to camp over the summer, but I knew I would run a bad 40 time, so I didn't do that. The second one was you should walk on. But you know what's weird? When you're in high school and they ask you to walk on, I just figured I wasn't good enough. So I thought, okay, I'll go to Princeton or Harvard. And then my rookie year with Washington, all the Penn State guys were telling me I would have started 3 years. I would have been like their best O-lineman. I grew up an hour and a half from there. I had season tickets. I was like, la, 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 I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Like that was my wife still gets mad because I still would have loved it. She's like, you went to the best school in the country. I'm like, I know, but I could have played at Penn State.
Yeah. And what your career could have been.
It's funny you say that, Dan. No, I because in all sincerity, I probably would have been like a 3rd or 4th round pick. I don't know if that really makes much of a difference, but your entry point matters, right? Like being an undrafted free agent, the only spot I could make was being the 9th and last guy on Marty Schottenheimer's first team in 2001. And then it's kind of always an uphill climb, and your draft status always stays with you. Whereas if you go to one of those bigger schools and maybe you're a 2nd or 3rd round pick and they're invested in you, it does make a difference. There's no question.
Keep your head up, okay?
All right. See you guys.
Thank you. That's Ross Tucker, one of our favorites.